नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण
Krishna
कृष्ण
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Yes. Anyone remembers last session what we discussed?
Detachment.
Detachment. Okay. What particularly we discussed on detachment?
Yeah. Arjun in 54th verses, Arjun asked Lord Krishna 4 questions. It's a Sitapogga Bhasa Samadhista Sakesava Sitadhiking Prabhaseta Kimashita Brajatiking.
Correct.
Sitapogga Admi kaise, how he is talking, how he is behaving, how he is living, everything he has asked to Krishna.
Yes. So in response, what Krishna says? क्या बता रहे हैं भगवान?
Prabhuji, with the help of tortoise, it was explained that we have to withdraw our senses from the sense objects and concentrate our mind on Krishna consciousness.
Yes. Correct. So as mentioned, Arjuna asked 4 questions to Krishna. How does Asthita Prajna means a person who is situated in transcendence, a person who is situated in Krishna consciousness, a person who is having divine consciousness. How such person acts? This is what Arjuna is asking to Krishna. So what he is asking, his symptoms, what are his symptoms? How does he speak? Ka bhasha. How does he sits? Means how does he restrain his senses from the sense objects, and how does he walk? How does he walk means how does he engage his senses in the service of the Lord? So this all questions Arjuna asked. First answer Krishna gave in the next verse itself, that is verse number 55. Krishna gave answer. Then next to that Ka Bhasha, Krishna answered in 2 verses 56 and 57. The next to that Krishna answered. That answer is little long answer. He answered in 58 to 63rd verse. So some 6 verses he took, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63. 6 verses Krishna took to answer how does he sit, means how does he restrain his senses. So it is a very important subject matter, how a person who is situated in transcendence, he controls or he restrains his senses from the sense object. And that Krishna is answering. How he can do is, Krishna gives a very nice example of tortoise. Just like a tortoise, he withdraws the limbs. Tortoise withdraws the limbs when there is a danger, or whenever there is a requirement. That time tortoise, he takes his limbs out of the shell and does his required activity, and again he withdraws his limbs. So same way Krishna is telling, a person who is situated in the knowledge, a person who is situated in the knowledge of transcendence, that person restrain or withdraws his senses when there is a no use. Just like devotees, whenever there is a use, whenever there is a service for the Lord, they utilize those senses in the service of the Lord. Just like Amrish Maharaj, example of Amrish Maharaj is also given. What is that? Amrish Maharaj, he engages all his senses in the service of Lord. Like he engaged his tongue in eating the prasadam of the Lord, in glorifying, chanting the holy name of the Lord. He engaged his eyes in seeing the form of the Lord, having darshan of the Lord. He engaged his nose in smelling the fragrance from the flowers or the tulsi leaf which is offered to the Lord. He engaged his ears in hearing the glories of the Lord. He engage his hands in worshipping the Lord. He engage his legs in going to temple to the Lord and cleaning the temple of the Lord. He engage all such his limbs and senses in the service of the Lord. So like that, devotees, he engage his senses in the service of the Lord. Further, Krishna, he mentioned that even though one may restrain his senses from the sense object, taste of the sense object remains. So taste will be there. That sense object taste will be there, even though sense object one may try to restrain. That sense taste is there. So how it can be possible to give up that taste? How it is possible? Anyone would like to answer?
So instead of Hare Krishna Prabhuji, instead of
Yes.
restraining, if senses are engaged in Krishna's activities, then only it will be possible.
Okay, if senses are engaged in Krishna service, then only it is possible. Okay, any other answer?
Purpose
So,
has to be
uh,
checked.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
if he
Yes,
engages in
I think the answer could be like by engaging the taste in higher taste
Okay,
higher
for the
taste and
Krishna.
consciousness,
okay, yes,
when the person is fixed in a consciousness, a Krishna consciousness.
yes. A person fixes his consciousness into Krishna consciousness. Yes. So as mentioned in a comment also by devotional service. Okay. So as all of you mentioned, it's correct. So how one person can seize the taste from, even though that sense object is there, taste will be there for the sense object. That is very natural. So how one can restrain the senses is, Krishna is mentioned, by developing the higher taste. What is that higher taste? By engaging our senses in the service of Krishna. Because Krishna's another name is Rishikesha. Rishikesha means he is the master and the controller of the senses. So when we engage our senses in the service of Rishikesha Krishna, so what happens? Our mind and our senses can be easily controlled. Because by our own strength, we cannot control the senses and mind. It is not possible, or it is not at all easy. But when we engage our senses in serving Krishna, or we situate ourselves in Krishna consciousness, so Krishna, he gives that strength. Like a child is there, a small child is there, 2-year-old child. He sees that his father every day he lifts some, weight. He lifts like a gym. You see, this big rod is there, dumbbells. We say they lift that rod and huge weight is there, 50 kg this side, 50 kg this side, like that. So father is lifting every day. This small child, 2 years old child, he is observing that my father is lifting this every day. So he also loves that desire. Oh, my father is doing, I also want to do. I should also lift this weight. So what he does, when nobody is there, he goes into that room, silently walk into that room and tries to lift that weight. So when he's trying, he's not able to lift. It's very heavy. But his father, he is noticing, he's seeing that his child is trying to lift this weight. So what he does, next day again, that child goes and tries. So what his father does, his father behind this small child, he is silently standing and he is lifting that weight. So child is thinking, oh, I am able to lift this weight, and he is feeling very happy. But in actuality, that father is lifting that weight. He is supporting that weight so that child may feel that he is lifting that weight. Same way, we are like a child. We have very less capacity, or our ability is very less to control these senses. These senses are described as a serpent, venomous serpent, poisonous serpent. So we cannot control, it's very difficult for us to control. But how we can control? when our Father, Supreme Father Krishna, to whom all of us belong, when we serve Him, when we take shelter of Krishna, Krishna gives us that strength that we are able to control these senses. So Krishna is further, he is mentioning these senses are so strong and impetus that they forcibly carry the mind even of a man of discrimination. A man who is trying to control the senses, even these senses are so powerful that it takes away or carries away the mind of such person also. Just like Vishwamitra Muni, we all know he was meditating, he was doing his tapasya, and how Menaka, she disturbed the tapasya of Vishwamitra Muni. Right? So even though Vishwamitra Muni, he is trying to control his senses, he is doing so much tapasya, but still he is carried away. Not carried away. So this is the power of senses. Senses are so strong. Even a person of a discrimination cannot control these senses easily. Further, Krishna mentions that one who restrains his senses and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence. So here Krishna has given how one can control the senses. As discussed, one can control the senses very easily by serving Krishna. By engages his senses in the service of Krishna, one can easily control these senses. Now we'll start for today's verse number 62. Onwards we'll start. So I'll share the. Yes. We'll chant this shloka. Please join. Dhyayato vishayan pumsa
Yato visyan pusta
sangasteşopajayate
sanghasteshu upajayate
sangat sanjayate kama
sangat sanjayate kama
kamat krodho abhijayate.
kama abhijayate.
Ayate.
Anyone would like to chant this shloka?
Yato visyan pungsah sanghasteshu upajayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodhado abhijayate.
Yes, someone else?
ध्यायतो विषयानुपुंसः संघ संघास ते तेषुपजायते संगत संजायते कामः कामात् क्रोध वह जायते
Wonderful. Yes.
वही जायते
Anyone else?
ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसा संगस तेजुस तेषु पजायते संगत संजायते काम क्रोध विजायते.
Wonderful. Yes, someone else would like to try?
Yeah, Prabhuji.
Yes, please.
Dhyayato visyam pumsa sangaste supajayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodha abhijayate.
Wonderful. If someone else would like to try? Someone would like to chant the shloka? कोई श्लोक chant करना चाहेगा? Okay, so we'll read the translation. While contemplating the objects of senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. So this is one of the important shloka of Bhagavad Gita, in which Krishna is explaining how one gets anger. Many people, many of us have this, challenge to control the anger. So we can figure out how anger can be controlled very easily to these 2-3 verses which Krishna is mentioning. So here Krishna is mentioning the root cause of anger, how it starts. Anger starts is while contemplating the objects of the senses. What is this? We'll try to understand this. Contemplating on the sense object is like, suppose a person, he saws a beautiful house. Now, day and night, he's thinking, I want that house, or I want to build a house bigger than that. So he is day and night, he is thinking or contemplating upon that house. That house is what? It's a object of senses. Sense object it is. So he is day and night thinking about that house, how I can develop such a big house, great house, I can develop for myself. He is thinking, oh, I should get this many acre of land, then I should, in this many acre of land, I will construct this much acre of house. Around that, I will live very big garden, and house should be 2-story, 3-story, and it will be like this. It will have elevator, all such facility it will have. So day and night he is spending his energy on thinking of the house, that sense of that. So what happens when he is thinking of such house? He develops attachment for that house. That person develops the attachment. Second stage is he develops that attachment for the house. Suppose now after contemplating, he has that land, he constructed that house also. So he has developed so much attachment for the house, even single crack somewhere on the wall, he get very disturbed. You might have also observed when people buy a new car, the car that they desire, wonderful luxury car, when some scratches happen, immediately they are ready to fight with the person, to the extent that they sometimes beat that person. They fight physically. On roads, we see in Delhi NCR, lot of such cases every day. So what happens? He develops that attachment. And when such attachment is developed, from attachment develops lust. So now what is this lust? We have to understand what lust Krishna is talking about. So here, after developing attachment, asakti for the sense object, one develops the lust. Lust means tendency to enjoy. I want to enjoy this sense object. That is lust. I want to enjoy. Either it can be food, it can be house, car, anything that I want to enjoy for myself. This is for me. That is lust. We want to enjoy for myself, my family, my relative, my friend. That is lust. The enjoyment which is independent of Krishna. Which is independent of Krishna. That enjoyment is known as lust. So what happens from such attachment, when we develop such attachment, I want to enjoy now. I want to enjoy such house. Suppose somebody takes away that house from us. We have taken loan to construct that house, but now we are not able to repay that loan. So what happens? Bank people, recovery department, they come and they seize the house and they take that house into the custody. So what happened? I wanted to enjoy that house, but now I am not able to enjoy that house. That house has been taken away by the bank. So I will get angry. I will develop anger, frustration. Right? I am not able to enjoy. So what will happen? I will develop that anger. That is the next stage. So first is we think of the sense object. we contemplate on that. Second is we try to acquire that sense object, we develop that attachment for that sense object. Third is, after developing that attachment for sense object, we want to enjoy that sense object. And once if we are failed in all these efforts to enjoy that sense object, what happens? Anger arises, frustration arises, and further depression also comes as a result. Very easy to correlate this thing nowadays, how people get angry over small things. Why? Because they have a deep attachment. They have a deep attachment for sense object. They have deep attachment for that sense object. We read the purport. One who is not Krishna conscious is subjected to material desires while contemplating the objects of senses. The senses require real engagements. If they are not engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, they will certainly seek engagement in the service of materialism. In the material world, everyone, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to say nothing of other demigods in the heavenly planets, is subjected to the influence of sense objects. And the only method to get out of this puzzle of material existence is to become Krishna consciousness. Become Krishna conscious. Lord Shiva was deep in meditation, but when Parvati agitated him for sense pleasure, he agreed to the proposal, and as a result, Kartikeya was born. When Haridas Thakur was a young devotee of the Lord, he was similarly allured by the incarnation of Maya Devi, but Haridas easily passed the test because of his unalloyed devotion to Lord Krishna. As illustrated in the above mentioned verse of Sri Yamunacharya, a sincere devotee of the Lord shuns all material sense enjoyment due to his higher taste for spiritual enjoyment in the association of the Lord. That is the secret of success. One who is not therefore in Krishna consciousness, however powerful he may be in controlling the senses, artificial repression is sure ultimately to fail, for the slightest thought of sense pleasure will agitate him to gratify his desires. So this purport, even though very small, but very lot of things are mentioned in this purport. So we'll try to understand. A person who is not Krishna conscious, he has nothing to do with bhakti. He is not aware about Krishna. He don't know Krishna, about Krishna consciousness. He don't know any such thing. So what happened to such person? He develop, when he sees some sense object, he starts contemplating on that sense object. He starts thinking about that sense object. Because the senses require some engagement. The senses are so powerful, so strong, these senses require some engagement. If they are not engaged, they will hanker for some sense object. Naturally, it will happen, right? Because this senses has been provided to us for certain engagement. This body, in this body, these senses are there. So now, if a person, he is not engaged in the service of the Lord, in Krishna consciousness, he don't know about Krishna. So naturally, his senses will demand certain engagement. Oh, today I want to eat something very nice, something tasty. Oh, today I want to go and watch some movie. Today I want to go and eat. Today I want to go and dance. Today I want to go so and so place, this, that. So senses, one after another, there will be endless desires of the senses will be attacking that person. But a person who is a devotee or who is Krishna conscious, he knows what kind of desires will help him. Desires which are related to Krishna, which are in connection with Krishna, will help him to elevate. Whereas another desires will let him fall into the material pool. We'll see later how Krishna explains that also. And if we analyze these desires, sense enjoyment desires or material desires, these desires are just like very dry in nature. Just like a person is there, he cast a mold, plaster of Paris, using plaster of Paris, he cast a mold and give a form, beautiful form of a statue. Earlier, that statue was in the form of some powder, plaster of Paris. After some process, it has been transformed into a beautiful statue, and further that person has painted that statue. It has taken shape of very beautiful form. But now, if we see, analyze, same thing happens with the sense objects. These sense objects are very dry in nature. The pleasure that one can derive from this sense object is very limited. One cannot enjoy these senses like in real. These are illusory. Just like our body, if we see, because of this skin, it is looking so nice. But just you take off 1 or 2 mm of this skin, just peel off that skin, it looks very horrible. To the extent we don't want to see that body again. We don't want to see that body again. Or another way, how we can understand these sense objects, just like in a desert, reflection of sunlight is there, and that reflection of sunlight gives a feeling that there is a water. There is a water. It is an illusion. We think there is a water, it is an illusion, it is a mirage. When we reach there, I think, oh, I have now got this water is visible. I will be able to quench my thirst. I will be able to satisfy my thirst. But when I go there, I see there is no water. I will be running behind in the desert for water, but there is just simply mirage is there, which creates illusion. So there is a no peace. When there is a no peace, there cannot be happiness. So same way, in our life, we are running after so many sense objects. Oh, this will be able to satisfy me. This will be able to satisfy me. But none of the sense object satisfy us. But when we engage those senses in the service of the Krishna, we find the real satisfaction. Just like a part of the machine. Suppose there is a very big machine is there, and that nut has come out of that machine. So now this nut has no value. But when it is put back into the machine, it has some part to play, it has some value. That entire machine is working. Same way, we being the part and parcel of the Lord, when we engage in Krishna's service, we are satisfied, we are happy. But as soon as we get separated from Krishna, our value gets minimized. Just like a fire is there, in the fire, there is a spark which gets separated from that fire and falls onto the ground. So as soon as that spark falls onto the ground, that spark get extinguished. That sparks get extinguished. But as soon as that spark is within the fire, it is always blowing, or it is producing that fire and heat and light. So that's why when we engage in Krishna's service by chanting His holy name, by reading about Him, by hearing about Him, by serving Him in different ways, that is the highest level of yoga. Prabhupada explains that when we engage our ear in hearing Bhagavad Gita, and when we engage our tongue in tasting Krishna Prasadam, and when we engage our eyes in seeing Krishna, that is the highest level of yogi. One may no need to go to Himalayas. One can remain in the city, and just by serving Krishna, he can even surpass that yogi. He can surpass that yogi. But these senses are very strong. It will forcibly take us away. So that's why we have to be very intelligent. It needs certain energy. Tapas Shakti is required. Just like, suppose you have a dog. Nowadays, lot of people have dogs in their houses. So suppose you have a dog, very big dog. So to maintain that dog, to control, you are going taking that dog on a walk. So to control that dog, you need certain energy. Now suppose you have two such dogs which are very big, huge in size. You need much more energy to control those dogs, right? Suppose you have three dogs, you need even more energy. Same way, we have these senses. We have 6 senses. There are 5 senses and one is mind. So these 6 senses are so strong. You need a lot of energy to control these 6 senses. It's not at all easy. You need a lot of energy. And how you can get that energy? That energy is tapas shakti. That energy one can get by serving Krishna, by taking austerity to serve Krishna, by chanting the holy name of the Krishna. This Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. By chanting this mantra, one get tapas shakti. So when we chant this mantra and hear this mantra, we get that tapas shakti to control the senses. It becomes very easy to control the senses. Otherwise, it is very difficult. Just like that person is there. Suppose he is a very lean or thin person. He cannot control three dogs, big dogs. Whereas a person who is very, strong, all muscles are there, he is very strong, he can easily control those 3 dogs. What to speak of 3 dogs, he can control even 4 dogs. Right? So same way, it is with us also. When we have that tapas shakti, and how we get that tapas shakti? By chanting the holy name, by serving Krishna. When we get that tapas shakti, we can easily control the senses. And when we can easily control the senses, we can easily control the anger. We can also control the anger. Control of that becomes very easy because we are able to control the senses. These senses always thinking of sense objects, and when we think of sense object, from sense object comes attachment, and from that attachment comes lust, and from lust comes anger. So one can easily control anger. How? By chanting this holy name. By chanting Hare Krishna mantra, one can easily control anger, because by chanting the holy name of the Lord, by chanting this Hare Krishna mantra, one gets tapas shakti, and from those tapas shakti, one can easily control the senses. And when one is easily able to control the senses, his attachment is also controlled. He is no more attached to the sense objects, when he is no more attached to the sense object, there is no question of lust. Further, there is no question of anger. So anger can be easily controlled by the tapas shakti one can derive by chanting the holy name of the Lord. We'll move to next verse. Further, this is the continuation of the previous verse. Krishna is explaining in this verse. We'll read. Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammohat smriti vibhramaha, smriti brahmasad buddhinasho, buddhinashat pranashyati. So further Krishna is explaining, from anger, delusion arises. And from delusion, bewilderment of memory. And when memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So see how nice analysis is done by Krishna, is explained by Krishna so easily. People, they focus so much on research, how this anger, this, that, so many things they focus. They give various theories, philosophy. But Krishna is very easily, in very short, he has mentioned this thing, how this anger arises and what all happens. So once somebody becomes angry, now suppose that house, he was meditating upon that house, he was thinking of that house, he constructed that house, he developed attachment for that house, now he is enjoying that house. Next moment, that house is taken away by his own brother. You know, in family, such issues happen over property. Even in case of this Kauravas and Pandavas, that issue happened. So that brother has taken away that house. So what happens? He becomes very angry. And when he becomes angry, delusion arises. Delusion means what? He get deluded. He get influenced by ignorance, avidya. And when such delusion arises, he get completely bewildered. His memory get bewildered. He forgets that he is my brother. And when he forgets that he is his brother, his intelligence is lost. What is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong, he is not able to discriminate. And when all such thing happens, he is sometime, even some cases you might have also heard, he even kills or fight with his own brother. He kills his own brother, he murders his own brother for the sake of property, piece of land. So what happened? Out of anger, he forgets, he loses his intelligence, what is right, what is wrong. After 1 month, 2 months, he is realizing what he has done is a big mistake, blunder he has done. So similarly, what happens when somebody engages in sense of enjoyment? He is not able to fulfill his desires. Anger comes. From anger, delusion arises. His knowledge is taken away. In avidya, ignorance, illusioned. And from such delusion, his memory is bewildered. Intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, he falls down into material pool. This material pool is what? Is full of suffering. Janma mrityu jara vyadi dukha doshanu darshanam. This is the material world. This material world has birth, death, old age, disease. And if you see, birth is full of pain. Death, again full of pain. Disease, full of pain. When somebody gets little fever also, he feels so uncomfortable. Old age, again full of pain. So he falls down into that material pool. What happens basically when somebody is trying to enjoy his sense enjoyments, he is in the cycle of birth and death. He will not be able to overcome that cycle. That's why for a yogi, for a practitioner, for a person who is practicing spirituality, it is first step is to control the senses. There are so many people across the world in the name of spirituality or spiritual practices, they fall into this material pool because they miss the control over the sense enjoyment. They want to enjoy their senses in full extent, whereas first step of any yoga is controlling of the senses. In Ashtanga yoga, one controls the senses very grossly. In Bhakti yoga, how one controls the senses? In Bhakti yoga, we see devotees, they are enjoying prasadam, they are enjoying, they are dancing, all these things they are doing. So how they are controlling their senses? Yes, any guesses how devotees are controlling their senses?
Because prasadam is the mercy of God. When we offer, prasadam is the mercy of, it becomes the mercy of God.
Yes.
Lord Krishna.
So they are controlling their senses by engaging their senses in Krishna service. Devotees, a bhakti yogi, he controls his senses by engaging his senses in the service of the Lord. Just like Lord Hanuman, he became very angry to the extent he burnt the entire Lanka. He burnt the entire Lanka. So he engaged his anger in the service of the Lord. That he burnt the entire Lanka of Ravan. So say devotees, they control their senses not by artificial means. There Prabhupada mentions artificial repression. They don't follow control senses by artificial means or artificial repressions. They control their senses by engaging in Krishna's service. Because when they engage those senses in the service of Krishna, Krishna gives that strength, tapas shakti. They develop that higher taste. For them, it becomes very easy to control the senses. We read the purport. By development of Krishna consciousness, one can know that everything has its use in the service of the Lord. Those who are without knowledge of Krishna consciousness artificially try to avoid material objects, and as a result, although they desire liberation from material bondage, they do not attain to the perfect stage of renunciation. On the other hand, a person in Krishna consciousness knows how to use everything in the service of the Lord. Therefore, he does not become a victim of material consciousness. For example, for an impersonalist, the Lord or the Absolute, being impersonal, cannot eat, whereas an impersonalist tries to avoid good eatables. A devotee knows that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer and that he eats all that is offered to him in devotion. So after offering good eatables to the Lord, the devotees take the remnants called prasadam. Thus everything becomes spiritualized and there is no danger of a fall down. The devotee takes prasadam in Krishna consciousness, whereas the non-devotees reject it as a material. The impersonalist therefore cannot enjoy life due to his artificial renunciation. And for this reason, a slight agitation of the mind pulls him down again into the pool of material existence. It is said that such a soul, even though rising up to the point of liberation, falls down again due to his not having support in devotional service. So, very deep thing Prabhupada has mentioned in this purport, that a person, there are certain class of spiritualists who are known as impersonalists. So, what is their understanding? That God is formless. He has no form. He is formless. He is some energy. That is their understanding. Whereas a devotee or a person who is Krishna conscious, he knows that Lord has his form, Tribhanga form. Lord has his Tribhanga form. And he is a person. So a devotee offers because he knows that Krishna is person and he has incarnated himself. He has incarnated himself in this material world in the form of Archa Vigraha. Archa Vigraha is the marble, wood or sand form of Krishna. Deity, we say Murti, some people say Murti. So that Archa Vigraha, that deity of the Lord, Krishna has manifested himself into that matter to receive the service from the devotees. Receive the service from the devotees. So what happens? He eats. When devotees, they offer with full love and devotion, Krishna eats that prasadam. Krishna eats that offering. And as a remnants, devotees, they take the prasadam. Whereas an impersonalist, he avoid those eatables. He avoid, no, I should not eat something palatable. I should eat only very dry food. I should not taste any kind of taste in this food. Like that, renunciation, they try to show that kind of renunciation to others. Whereas a devotee, he knows that this offering, this bhoga has been offered to the Lord. Let me honor it. Let me eat it. It is a prasadam. Same way, there are certain class of, you might have also seen or experienced or heard that there are certain sadhus. What happened when people they offer their money to such sadhus? So they get carried away. They want to enjoy that money. Whereas a devotee, he knows that money has a proper use. What use money has? Money has a use in the service of Krishna. In the service of Krishna, preach his holy message, preach his holy name, preach the message of Bhagavad Gita. This money has a utility. He can construct a nice temple, grand temple for the Lord. So devotee, he knows that utility of resources. Either it is a food, palatable food, or money, or anything else. So he engages all those resources in the service of Krishna. And by engaging all those resources in service of Krishna, he does the highest welfare activity. Just like with that money, he distributes prasadam to thousands of the people. Just like in Vrindavan, we have a kitchen, Akshay Patra kitchen. With that, we distributes 1.5 lakh meals to every day to all the childrens. sadhus, thousands of sadhus we are serving, visitors we are serving. So all that has a certain utility. The resources has a certain utility. Whereas certain class of sadhus, either they want to, oh no, we don't want food, good food, we don't want money, we don't want this thing, we don't want that thing. They try to avoid by artificial renunciation. Or there are certain class of people who get entangled by such kind of facilities. Whereas a devotee, he knows what is the proper utilization of such resources, how it can be utilized in the service of Krishna. Just like a tortoise is utilizing his limbs for his own protection, for his own serving. Same way, devotees utilize all kind of resources, all kind of sense objects in the service of Krishna. And by utilizing all such things, he makes a spiritual advancement. He becomes dear to Krishna. And he gets liberated. He comes out of the cycle of birth and death. Whereas it is mentioned here, Prabhupada is mentioning, it is said that such a soul, even though rising up to the point of liberation, those who do artificial renunciation, even though they may become a very exalted personality, to the extent they are going to get liberated, they fall down again due to not having support in devotional service, because they are not engaging their senses in the service of Krishna. They are not Krishna conscious. They fall again into the pool of material world, again the pool of miseries. So that's why a person should develop a knowledge to discriminate what is good, what is bad, what is favorable for Krishna consciousness, what is unfavorable for Krishna consciousness. He should accept what is favorable. And in that way, when somebody acts for the pleasure of the Lord, Krishna is also promising. What he is promising? Name bhakta pranishyati. Kaunteya prati jani, name bhakta pranishyati. O Kaunteya, O Arjuna, you declare boldly to the entire world that my devotee, they never perishes. Krishna is making promise. And one more promise Krishna makes in Bhagavad Gita. What is that? Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana paripasate tesham nitya abhiyuktanam yogakshemam mamyam. The devotees who are always thinking of me, Ananya Chinta. Ananya means always thinking of me, constantly engaged in worshipping me, remembering me. To such devotees, I provide whatever they lack and I preserve whatever they have. So Krishna is making such promise that he is ready to provide, take care of our basic needs, take care of all our needs, to provide whatever we need, or to preserve or protect whatever we have. That's why when we try to take up this process of devotional service, Krishna is personally there to help us, to guide us. When we take more and more seriously, Krishna also take us very seriously. Krishna start acting in our life much more seriously. So we should try to engage our senses in the service of the Lord by chanting His holy name. When we do that, so what happens? We get the tapas shakti to control over our senses, to control over our anger. All these things will become very, very easy. Sulabha. Sulabha means very, very easy. So we'll end here. Anyone has any question or anything to ask or share, please feel free to ask or share. Any questions?
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
प्रभु जी जो सांख्य योग है, जो सेकंड चैप्टर इज गोइंग ऑन, सांख्य योग means it is the atma gyan. That's why it's called sankhya योग.
What is the question?
Sankhya, that's chapter name is Sankhya Yoga, second
Correct.
chapter. So Sankhya means my perception is Sankhya Yoga means that is the Lord Krishna gave the Atma Gyan. Atma Gyan, that's the main thing he has given the to Arjun. Sankhya Yoga means Atma Gyan, Brahma Gyan.
Yes. So Sankhya Yoga includes Atma Gyan, Brahma Gyan. It includes all the knowledge actually. Sankhya knowledge, Sankhya Yoga includes the knowledge of the self, of the
Yes.
super self, about this creation, because we are the part of this creation. So all these things Sankhya Yoga includes. Primarily, Sankhya Yoga is about the Atma Jnana, about the knowledge of the self and the
Self.
super self. That is the
Right.
basic Sankhya Yoga.
Yes. One more thing, Prabhuji, the second chapter is the contents summarized gist of the whole Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
So can we say that here already going on, like Lord Krishna told Arjun, karma, bhakti and gyan. In this chapter already he has advice. So in that sense, we can say that is the gist of Bhagavad Gita. There is the second chapter.
Yes. So this entire Bhagavad Gita is a yoga ladder. Krishna is
Yes.
explaining various yogas, Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, different yogas Krishna is explaining. And this second chapter is the summary of the entire Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna has explained entire Bhagavad Gita in a very nutshell, in a very small thing we can say Krishna has explained. Now, what happens? This is just a summary. Further, how one can understand, just like Krishna explains in verse number 47 that of Bhagavad Gita is telling, you have right to perform your duty, but you do not have a right over the fruit of that activity. After performing action, you will get fruit, but you don't have right over the fruit. You have a right over the action to perform that action. So now, further Krishna is telling in next verse, with that fruit, one get bound up, one get bondage in this material world. Now, what to do with that fruit? How to utilize that fruit? What to do with that fruit? How one can get free from bondage? That Krishna explains in third chapter. What to do with that fruit? Further, if we read fourth chapter, fifth chapter, so some small portion of that second chapter converts into entire one chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna explains much more detailed and practical things that one can implement in his life and make his life successful. That Krishna explains in further chapters. Like food, what kind of food one should eat, what kind of sleep one should have.
That
All
is an
yes.
chapter.
Yes, that Krishna explains how one should work, how one should eat, how one should sleep, how one should speak. All these things Krishna explains further in Bhagavad Gita. How one should die, that also Krishna explains. Art of living, art of dying, art of eating, art of sleeping, art of speaking. All these things Krishna is elaborating in further chapters of Bhagavad Gita.
Is the Bhagavad Gita is the manual of the human life. I think so.
Yes. Yes.
मैनुअल जैसे हम टीवी चलाते हैं, फ्रिज चलाते हैं, मैनुअल बुक होते हैं. दैट इज द हमारा ह्यूमन लाइफ कैसे होगा. दैट इज द भगवद गीता इज द मैनुअल.
Yes, Bhagavad Gita is the manual for human life. Yes. Any other question or anything?
So, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, nicely we have explained. Is very nice. One more thing, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Prabhuji, जैसे second chapter, the gist of whole Bhagavad Gita, so only one verse, if we see, only one verse in 18th chapter, 66, whole Bhagavad Gita is established in this sloka. सर्वधर्मान परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज हंतं सर्वपापेभ्यो मोक्षय समीमासुच. मतलब भगवान लॉर्ड कृष्ण इसमें सब कुछ बोल दिया. आई थिंक सो. इज इट राइट?
Yes.
If I am not wrong.
Yes.
I think this whole Bhagavad Gita is this in this slok is standing.
Yes. Entire Bhagavad Gita is actually is a that conclusion one can make is that Sarva Dharman Parityaja. Once there was one story that
Yes.
one very big person, rich person was there, very well-off person. So everything he has, but he is having certain kind of anxiety.
Yes.
Some certain kind of anxiety he is having. He has all the resources, money, wealth, everything is there, but still he has a certain anxiety. So he visit to one astrologer and he asked, "What is the source or what is the solution of my anxiety? I have everything in my hand, but still I am anxious. So what is the solution?" So that astrologer, he says, he guides him, asks him that you should approach a proper bona fide acharya, and from him you should try to understand Bhagavad Gita. That is the solution of your anxiety. He says,
Yes.
okay. He goes and search out a bona fide acharya, a person from him he can understand or learn Bhagavad Gita. So this person asked, okay, now I have come to you, please guide me or give me this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. Help me so that I can understand this Bhagavad Gita and I can get free from the anxiety. So Acharya, he says, oh, well, good. You are so lucky that you have interest in Bhagavad Gita. You have come to me. I'll help you. I'll guide you. I'll give this knowledge to you. So this person, he asked, okay, how much time it will take for me to learn this Bhagavad Gita or understand Bhagavad Gita? So this Acharya, he says, 1 year will be sufficient to go through Bhagavad Gita, entire Bhagavad Gita. You will understand. He says, oh, 1 year, too much. Please do something. He says, okay, we'll do one thing. We'll read one portion of Bhagavad Gita, which is most confidential knowledge of the Lord, which is like treasure. So that portion, some 6 chapters, those 6 chapters, important chapters, we'll read. It will take approx 6 months. He says, 6 months is also too much. Please do something. He says, okay, we'll do one thing. 18th chapter is the summary of the Bhagavad Gita. It will take 3 months. We'll understand that 18th chapter, which includes the entire conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. We'll read that chapter. He says, that is also too much. Can you make it even less? He says, okay, we'll do one thing. We'll read a certain portion of 18th chapter. It will take 1 month. He says, okay, that is also little difficult. He says, okay, we'll do one thing. We'll read only one shloka of the Bhagavad Gita. And what is that shloka? Sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja am tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayami masucha. That Krishna is explaining, you abandon all kind of religions and just surrender unto me. Do not worry, I will take care. Do not fear. You will get free from all sins. So it will take just 1 or 2 days. We'll understand this shloka in detail and you will get free from all kind of anxiety. So this person, he gets, oh, how one can surrender to Krishna? How one can left everything? How one can leave everything? Everything in the sense Krishna is telling, abandon all kind of religions and just surrender unto me. So how it is possible? So this person is asking all such questions. So Acharya, he explains, to understand this thing, this entire Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has spoke. Krishna has given this entire Bhagavad Gita to understand this point. So this Bhagavad Gita is very simple, very easy, and that is the whole conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. But to understand, it is very important. Entire Bhagavad Gita is just spoken for that purpose, so that we can understand how great is Krishna, what kind of instructions he has given, which can help us, right? So for that we have to read entire Bhagavad Gita to understand, and that will help us. Okay. Any other questions or anything someone would like to share or ask? Okay, then we'll end here. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki
Jai.
the Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, Hare Krishna.